According to Luke, Paul was in a hurry to get to Jerusalem by Pentecost. And perhaps it had to do with the collection for the saints in Jerusalem that Paul brought with him. A nervousness about traveling with so much, or an eagerness to supply it to those who had so little. Maybe it had to do with the way that the population of Jerusalem swelled during the important Jewish holy days, and the opportunity to witness to Jesus it provided. Now, such an event was incredibly strategic, as any newly converted disciples would soon be heading back out to the diaspora from which they came, equipped with the Spirit and the message of salvation in Jesus' name. One of the things I've really come to appreciate about the book of Acts is Dr. Luke's attention to detail. I know there are those who say they just made all this stuff up, but if that's the case, why all the mundane details? And more importantly, how could they be so accurate? Were they not also true? When he, that is Paul, met us at Assos, we took him in on board and went to Mytilene. We sailed from there, and on the following days we arrived opposite Chios. The next day we touched at Samos, and the day after that we came to Miletus. For Paul had decided to sail past Ephesus so that he may not have to spend time in Asia. He was eager to be in Jerusalem, if possible on the day of Pentecost, as I observed. Now, if Paul was in a hurry, why so many stops? The commentator William Ramsey observed the reason for sailing during the day and anchoring at night was the wind. During the Aegean summer, it generally blows from north, beginning at a very early hour in the morning. Then in the late afternoon, it dies away, and at sunset, there is dead calm. Only one who had so researched these details, or better yet, lived them as Luke had, would be able to retell the events with such care. Given Paul's haste, the next detail is an important one. From Miletus, he sent a message to Ephesus, asking the elders of the church to meet him. And Miletus was not far from Ephesus, but the road connecting the two was circuitous at best. It would take 3 days' travel to make it to Ephesus, and then 3 more to return with the elders in tow. Now, Paul was down to roughly 30 days remaining before Pentecost, so this was no insignificant errand. We ought keep in mind that as we unpack Paul's message. Also, these words in verse 25, and now I know that none of you among whom I have gone about proclaiming the kingdom will ever see my face again. Well, Paul later writes to the Ephesians from prison, this brief visit would be the last time he would see them. And he knew it. Now, I wonder if Paul spent the 6 days quietly contemplating and preparing the words that he would share with these leaders of the church with which he had spent 3 years. And we'll probably take a week or two to look at Paul's message in its entirety, but for now, let's take the first line. You yourselves know how I lived among you the entire time from the first day that I set foot in Asia. Like the prophet Samuel recalling his manner of life and integrity before the Israelites, Paul recalled the manner of his life before the elders of Ephesus. But in Paul's case, it doesn't seem to prove anything. Rather, an encouragement to the leaders in the church to model their lives after his. I wonder how many of us could say the same about our lives. Not, do you remember what I told you, but rather, do you remember how I lived among you? As we press deeper into 2023, it's a good reminder to us to live with the end in mind. As others will no doubt someday reflect back on our lives and our time spent with them, what will they recall about our way of life? Were we small, petty, inwardly focused, or did our lives point to something greater, someone greater? May it be so. Have a blessed week.